Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Geometry Dash video. Welcome to part 2 of the Geometry Dash theory. Get ready to throw everything you know about the game out the window, because today, everything changes. I laid out most of the pieces in part 1, and now it's time to put them all together. Make sure to leave a like on this video, and if you're new, consider subscribing. I hope you enjoy. In part 1, I talked about Spooky, the Vault Keeper, Glubfub, the Keeper of the Vault of Secrets, and the Demon Guardian, the monster that lurks in the basement. Before I talk about the last two important characters, let's take another look at my thought process. So, as I talked about in part 1, Geometry Dash used to be a perfect paradise, as shown in the background images for the 2.2 icon contest results. But what exactly happened to this wonderful world? There's some dialogue I brushed past in part 1, specifically both Spooky and Glubfub mentioning that they had their own secret coins. Why would they want these coins, and why would they hold them in such high regard? Well, who else collects secret coins in Geometry Dash? That's right, the player. Here, we have a firm connection between these vault keepers and the player, which is interesting enough on its own. But there's another tidbit here, the challenge. I mentioned it in part 1, but I kept it vague as I didn't want to spoil the conclusion. And what is that conclusion? The vault keepers, Spooky and Glubfub, share traits with the player, they collect secret coins, and they seem to have the power to build levels. And interestingly, Glubfub says that he does not want RobTop to find out that he's built a level. With this in mind, I think that these Vault Keepers not only share traits with the player, but they are players. Or rather, they used to be. Think about it. The only way to build a level is by using the level editor, and only players have access to the editor. Plus, take a look at this. In one of his riddles, Spooky mentioned that RobTop gave him a robot icon as a gift. Who else earns robot icons? That's right, players do. Now I know this might seem like a bit of a stretch, but there's one final piece of evidence that I noticed. Their names. Spooky, Glubfub, these aren't real names. But you know what? Irma isn't a real name either. Viperin, Aeon, Nepesta, Riot, those aren't real names. They're gamer tags. Name we give ourselves that we go by in games. Spooky and Glubfub would be ridiculous names to give your child, but I've heard stranger gamer tags than these. Spooky and Glubfub used to be players, and those are the names that they gave themselves for Geometry Dash. This is cool and all, but why is it useful to know? Let's look back at our previous interactions with Spooky. When talking to him, he makes it quite clear that he's afraid of RobTop, and that RobTop is up to bad things. Allow me to reiterate Spooky's quote. "I don't feel good. RobTop will come soon, unless he's already here. Watching, waiting, lurking. He knows every move I make. Every move you make. But maybe you can stop him. Maybe you are the key?" Why would a player be afraid of a game developer's actions? It would be mostly due to that developer making bad changes to the game, making it a worse place for the player. Just like how I claimed RobTop destroyed the perfect paradise that Geometry Dash used to be, right? Now this one might really seem like a stretch, but don't worry, we have a lot more information to cover. Let's take a break from these guys for now. A long break. A break so long, it might be better spent in the Chamber of Time. That's right, it's time to talk to the Gatekeeper. This guy is a bit strange. He doesn't really seem to know what's going on. In fact, I don't think he's really in his right mind at all. But regardless, let's look at some of the things he says. Most of his monologue is telling the player to go away, but before long he says something interesting. This is my first conversation in 1,000 years. The Gatekeeper has been asleep in this chamber for a long time. But what was before then? What happens to him? The Gatekeeper is most likely not a player. He doesn't mention secret coins, he certainly hasn't made a level, nor does he have any sort of gamer tag. However, he did live 1,000 years ago, which could certainly be when the paradise was still, well, a paradise. He even makes reference to a few of the biomes found in Amor Ultra's background. A volcano, a river, as well as silence and darkness, which are both aspects of outer space. If the Gatekeeper was part of this paradise, that could only mean one thing. That the Gatekeeper is, or again, rather was, an icon, just like we see in the drawing. An icon that mutated over 1,000 years, and was brainwashed to become RobTop's pet, as the Demon Guardian calls him. For one reason or another, RobTop banished the Gatekeeper of the Chamber of Time, sealing him in using the Master Emblem you can buy quite freely from the secret shop. But regarding the emblem, why? Why are we able to purchase such a valuable artifact from one of the game's merchants? How did it make its way into the hands of Scratch, the blue robot creature? I don't really know what he is, but he does. If I recall correctly, Scratch, the merchant of the secret shop, tells us exactly what he is when we first meet him. He's a glitch in the code. Scratch isn't supposed to exist, and yet he's created his own shop, a shop that sells an item powerful enough to seal away an icon for a millennium. This master emblem is quite mysterious, and we don't really know too much about it. It's possible that master emblem isn't even its true name, and that's just what Scratch calls it. But we don't know better, so master emblem it is. If we want to dissect what this thing is, we first need to figure out who the master is. Whether or not Scratch made up the name, I think it's pretty clear. The emblem is the key that opens the lock to the Chamber of Time, so it's almost certainly the same key that closed the lock. The gatekeeper is RobTop's pet, and the only other character who knew of its existence is the Demon Guardian who has been locked away. This supports my statement that Rob locked the gatekeeper down there, and it also tells us that the master emblem belongs to Mr. Top himself. But there's a problem here. Why would RobTop let the master emblem go to just be sold away? If it's so powerful, he wouldn't want anyone else to have it. Certainly not a player like ourselves. Luckily, Scratch answers this question for us. In his dialogue, when we first take a look at the master emblem, he makes it obvious as day that he outright stole this artifact. And being a glitch in the code, RobTop wouldn't have any idea who took it. And since it seems that Scratch has been hiding in this place for quite a long time, I think it's safe to assume that he stole the emblem in the early days of his own existence. Perhaps before RobTop had a chance to do even more evil with it. Scratch does mention that he hates Rob, so that would make sense. So, RobTop took over this paradise for the purpose of making his game, which Scratch is a byproduct of. But what else happened as a result? If we look back at the paradise image, something stands out to me. The fact that only one game mode is present, the cube. Now, why wouldn't there be any other game modes here? The only explanation I can think of is that there aren't any other game modes in this time period. It's just the cube. And if that's the case, then the logical explanation is that somehow alternate game modes came as a result of RobTop's destruction. Now, this could just be a purely artistic choice, so I won't spend too long on this idea, as there isn't really too much evidence. But I had the idea that the ball, spider, and every other non-cube game mode is a result of mutation. Rob messed with the world, and just like in real-world nuclear disasters, some of the species gained certain oddities. The cube lost its corners and became jagged, creating the ball. Another cube grew 4 legs, making the spider. And another cube morphed shape completely, resulting in the wave. The ship and UFO are interesting cases, however, because they aren't a separate creature entirely. You can see the cube riding the ship or piloting the UFO. These two game modes might represent the icons trying to escape RobTop's wrath. The ship helped the icons become airborne. The UFO helped them reach high into the sky. And the swing brought them into outer space, because although you can't see a cube icon within the swing, it definitely appears mechanical, including having rocket thrusters. As I mentioned earlier, mutation might be what happened to the gatekeeper as well, considering his lack of an icon appearance. That, combined with 1,000 years in the Chamber of Time and slow brainwashing by RobTop, could definitely lead to what he is today. But before I take this little tangent too far, let's go back to the theory at hand. I want to make sure we have time to cover the next thing, because it is incredibly important. In fact, thinking about this item was the catalyst that sparked this entire theory in the first place. What I'm talking about is, of course, the map. The adventure mode that Rob has been teasing us with since September of 2019. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we know practically nothing about what the map actually is. Just that it will be some sort of new gameplay mode that involves traversing some sort of world. I've gone over my full predictions of what the map might be in my dedicated video on the subject, but for now, let's focus on what it looks like. Take a look at these two images and just try to tell me that they aren't two parts of a post-apocalyptic world. Menacing paths devoid of life, except for the occasional dark monster. Dead or evil-looking trees alongside ancient structures, without a single icon in sight. This, my wonderfully attentive friends, is the state of the world of Geometry Dash after RobTop took over. We, the naive players, weren't meant to see this. We were only meant to see levels, handcrafted locations with a specific beginning and ending, without so much as a peek of the outside world. But somehow, in 2.2, we will find access to this map, this desolated world that has been hidden from us for so long. And what secrets we might uncover, I can't wait to see. One popular theory as to what kind of gameplay the map will bring is that it will be a collection of short platformer mode levels as a solid introduction to the mechanic. I personally really hope this is the case, as it would be especially cool with all of those pixel blocks that are coming, but never mind that. If this hypothesis about mini platformer mode levels is correct, then that brings up another interesting idea. The character RobTop never wanted us to see this outside world. He doesn't want the players to know what the place truly looks like. So if we're finally seeing the truth, that means that through some unknown means, we have escaped from his grasp. Not only can we see this place of destruction and lost dreams, but we're free of the auto side-scrolling that's been a staple of Geometry Dash for years. We're no longer under his rule, so we can explore as we please. There is one potential counter-argument to this map idea, and that's that not all of the map is dark and desolate. In fact, some areas look quite pleasant, with abundant nature, pretty gems, and light. My response to this is, that's just how nature works. If you look at the images of the area around where the Chernobyl nuclear disaster happened, nature is taking over. There's trees, plants, and bright colors at every corner. When civilization in a certain place goes away, nature replaces it. And I think that's what happened here, in the happier parts of the map. A nice stone path, flourishing trees and bushes, a pretty tundra, and unclaimed jewels next to a now broken down rail track. Post-apocalyptic worlds simply don't have to be a depressing sight all of the time. Now we are nearing the end. But before we finish the theory, there's one last piece of the puzzle I'd like to put in place. At the end of the part 1 video, I promised I would go over certain things, and most of those things I have covered here. But there's one little aspect that I haven't talked about yet, and while it isn't an obvious surface level detail, it adds that little bit of support that I think really ties this whole thing together. Chicken. If you're an outsider to Geometry Dash, this might seem like a joke, but I assure you, I am dead serious. Chicken is mentioned by 4 separate characters on 4 separate occasions in the game, and that's quite a lot considering that there's only 7 characters with dialogue in Geometry Dash. I mentioned the first one in my last video. During the Demon Guardian's monologue, he mentioned that RobTop lured him into the cage with a promise of chicken. The creature seems to be a vile monster. Wouldn't he eat people or souls or something, not just chicken? And he seems really upset when there is no chicken after all. And he's been down here for a long time. He's probably been eating something else. One of Glubfub's riddles also involves chicken. He asks us what came first, the chicken or the egg. He says that the egg came first, the egg laid the chicken, and that the chicken said that the password was on fire. The correct answer to the riddle is the chicken is on fire. Guys, I don't think that the chicken is a real physical chicken animal, but rather something else. A metaphor. But a metaphor what? See what I did there? Metaphor for what? Metaphor what? You get it, let's move on. The chicken says that the password is on fire. Since the answer to this riddle is the chicken's on fire, then logically the chicken must be the password since it's on fire. But what password? That doesn't make sense. What is the chicken the password to if not this riddle? When you first visit Scratch at the secret shop, he also casually mentions the animal, saying, "Do you smell burning chicken?" Here, again, there isn't a chicken anywhere. The treasure room in which we find the secret shop has no food or animals, and once again, the chicken is on fire. If the chicken is a metaphor, then it's a metaphor for something burning? And it smells, apparently. I didn't know glitches could smell, but okay. The chicken is also somehow a password, but wait, hold on. What is a password? Well, it's a code you use to enter something. A key you use to enter something. The chicken is on fire. The chicken smells. RobTop promised the Demon Guardian chicken, but it was nowhere to be found. The chicken is a metaphor. Is there anything else in this lore that smells bad, that's burning, that's a broken promise? The chicken is the key. I've heard that word before. The key. What else is the key? That's right. Spooky says that the player could be the key to stopping RobTop. RobTop is destroying the world of Geometry Dash in order to make his game. The chicken is a metaphor for the happy paradise that Geometry Dash once was, and it being on fire represents RobTop's reign of terror. The player needs to take back this world. We need to reclaim the chicken, the perfect world that RobTop took from us. Even the gatekeeper in the Chamber of Time agrees. He hasn't been fully brainwashed yet. He says so clearly, "I can't take it anymore. The smell, it's killing me. Can you smell it? Chicken, burning chicken." The gatekeeper still vaguely remembers his time as an icon, as I claimed earlier. He wants the chicken back too, and this is his plea to us. And we aren't alone. We have the Demon Guardian on our side too. He wanted chicken as well. RobTop promised that he would help the Guardian fix the world, and tricked him into a cage. Heck, it's even in his name, Guardian. He's a guardian of the world that this RobTop character, this mastermind, stole from not us, but the icons that once resided in the paradise. The Demon Guardian is out to destroy the world of Geometry Dash, but he doesn't want to wreak havoc too, no. He wants to destroy what it's become. The Demon Guardian is undoubtedly on the side of good. To top it all off, I personally asked RobTop what he thinks about my theory that the Demon Guardian is the good guy on the Geometry Dash Discord server, and he said, lies like that are punishable. He didn't just say, no, you're wrong, the Demon Guardian is the bad guy. He said, lies like that are punishable. If that isn't something an evil world destroyer would say, I don't know what is. My friends, my beautiful, wonderful friends, thank you from the bottom of my heart for sticking with me. Thank you for your attention. And hey, if you made it this far, why not leave a like? And if you want to see more from me, consider subscribing as well. I plan on making a part 3 after 2.2's been out for a while, so definitely stay tuned for that. This has been a wild ride, and I'm relieved to finally get this video out for you all. And while we wait for Geometry Dash 2.2 to come out and either confirm or deny this theory, I'd love to know your thoughts. Are you convinced? Are you on Team Demon Guardian now or not? Let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Irma, and I will see you all in my next video.